Hey guys, let's continue with our course review of Business Math B. This is the asynchronous video for Unit 6. So we just finished up Lesson 2. Now we're going to take a look at the Lesson 13 concept that is most commonly missed on the final, calculating markup rate based on cost and selling price. So let's take a look. A pair of string lights sells for $25.99. The cost is $8.87 each. What is the markup rate based on cost to the nearest tenth of a percent? So again, keep in mind that on the final, you're not going to have the normal clue to know where your equations are coming from, right? It's not like finishing lesson 13, taking the lesson 13 checkpoint, and knowing that all your equations are going to be from lesson 13. So you need to use context here. So notice a couple keywords. They mention cost, they mention markup rate, okay? This would be your clue to start hunting through that equation reference sheet or your own notes and find the appropriate equations that go with this. So when I do that, I find that markup rate equals markup over cost, and I've selected this one because again it includes, first of all, they asked us to solve for markup rate, so I have pulled out an equation that says markup rate equals something. But second, I've chosen it because it also includes cost, which is another variable that they mentioned in the prompt. Okay, so from here, let's see what we have. Again, so we have a pair of string lights. Oh, and they've also told us, which I forgot to notice, selling price. The lights sell for $25.99. They cost $8.87 each. So meaning that as a consumer, this is the cost of this is the selling price to a consumer. So if you or I walk in a store, this is what we pay. The cost is what that store buys it for, right? So they get them for $8.87 each and then they mark them up. Okay, so let's plug in what we can. And it turns out we need a second equation. Again, a selling price is $25.99, so we'll be able to use this equation because it involves, once again, all of our relevant equations. So, plugging in what we know. Markup equals selling price minus cost. So let's take a look at that. Markup equals selling price minus cost. So if the strings sell for $25.99, then that's their selling price. Okay? Here is one of the common mistakes on this particular problem type. So, and that is that if we look at cost, it says the cost is $8.87 each. The cost is $8.87 each. But the selling price they gave us was for two of them. The cost they're giving is for one. So we need to multiply that by 2. Okay, so that's the first common mistake, is that if they give you a selling price for more than one unit, and then they just give you the cost per unit, you need to make these equal somehow, right? So we need to be talking about the same number of units in both cases. So if the pair sells for $25.99 and the cost is $8.87 each, again, we need to multiply by 2 so that in both cases we're talking about 2 units. And that's the first common mistake I'll mention. So continuing, if we simplify, we can find that markup equals 821, right? We simplify, we get markup is 821. And once we have what the markup is, we can substitute it into our markup rate equation. Remember, that was our original goal. 821 divided by cost, which we had already computed, right? So we end up using that twice. Remember, cost was 887 times 2, which is 1778. So we use that again in this second equation. And then we end up with markup rate as 46.3%. Okay, so the other common mistake, so the first one is just making sure your unit numbers match. Okay, so again, we have a selling price for 1 unit, or for 2 units rather, so our cost needs to describe 2 units. And the second important mistake is confusing your variables. So many students, might accidentally put cost in for selling price or markup rate in for markup. I see these all mixed around in several ways all the time. So if I were you, I recommend writing down your own personal definition of cost, markup rate, and selling price to help you keep them apart. So for me, I know that cost is always talking about the cost to the seller. And I know that selling price is the cost to the consumer. Markup is the dollar amount increase in the price when it goes from, me as a store owner buying it from a manufacturer, and then I mark it up a certain amount of money, and then I sell it to you. That's the markup. And then the markup rate describes what that percent increase is from what I bought it for to what I'm selling it to you for. So that's how I keep those variables straight. Come up with your own method of keeping them organized.